I, we know each other pretty well now. And you know that the moment I start just a simple movie project of just a one Garbo movie, it's not a problem. I thought, I'll do Anna Karenina. I've heard it's pretty famous. Let's go do it. You know me. I pick something that has so many iterations. And we have 4 of them today. Anna Karenina is from a book by Lev Tolstoy, who is a Russian in the 19th century. The book is 800 pages. Making that into a movie, yeah, it's a problem. I'm going to stick to the movies. There are actually a couple of television serials out there. BBC did one in 1977. And I believe there's a Russian one, and there's a second BBC one. And I think this book needs to be a TV serial, not so much a film. And we're about to find out why. I'm going to go in order. Anna Karenina, 1935, Greta Garbo, and Frederic Marsh, and Basil Rathbone, and Maureen O'Sullivan, and Freddie Bartholomew as the little boy. Also, Constance Collier as a uncredited little side character, produced by Selznick. So, and you can see, even though it's 1935, and he did Wizard of Oz in 1939, and more like Rebecca and stuff like that the same year or the year after, the touch is already there. You can straight away, this is a Selznick film. You do realize I have too many pages, right? I have 3 pages, which is too many. So you're going to hear a lot of me going pagey. Story set in Russia. In the original book by Tolstoy, is actually not a book, it's a serial that was in a newspaper. So the book is from the 1870s, but it's actually not originally a book, it was a serial. They used to do all the books at the time. The way that we do modern books is quite a modern invention, and not at this stage. What you would do is publish like a chapter in the monthly whatever publication is local. I'm not sure what's the one in Russia. I do know what's the one in America, which was Harper's monthly magazine, and this is a bound copy of the 1853 complete all the things that were worth keeping. And in this one there are chapters of Bleak House by Dickens. And so the Tolstoy would have been like that, come out every month for about 2 years. It took 2 years to write his 800 pages for them to be published. And then once that is done, in 1878, I believe, it was bundled into an actual book. And I suppose went into the world. And I think the chapters would have gone into the world as well. The Dickens chapters also went. So these Dickens chapters now from 1853 were not paid for by this magazine. So it's not illegal because they didn't have the copyright laws. But Dickens was really upset about it. Tolstoy would have been upset about it too. So he took 2 years to write it. And reputedly, when he came to the end of the story, he was quite sick of it. I don't think it impacts the ending very much, because I think he always planned to end it the way it does. But that brings us to the actual story. Now, in Dutch, we have a word for a certain type of story, which is draak. The word also means dragon, but this is incidental. But a draak is a story where at the end everybody is either unhappy or dead. And usually in the run of the story, ditto. So this absolutely is een draak. Oh my god, yes. Story of Anna Karenina, who is the wife of Alexei Karenin, because Russian, the female gets an A at the end and the man gets the base name. None of the movies tell us why Anna and Karenin are married. They are married. They have a son about 9 years old. And the story starts actually with her coming from St. Petersburg, where they are living, to Moscow to her brother, or more specifically her brother's wife, to convince her to take him back. Because Stiva, the brother, has a roving eye, and a roving hand, and a roving mouth, and a roving nether parts. And she, the wife, Dolly, has 5 kids. And there is divorce in 1870s Russia, but only if there is a guilty party, and this guilty party is now anathema for if they are going through the courts. The honor is gone and all that of stuff. So one would like to avoid this. So the first scene of all these movies is Anna talking to Dolly, take him back. If you men are like that, you know. And so we start with trying to justify adultery, which is an interesting choice, especially if you know what happens later, because actually on the train there, she briefly sees one Alexei of Vronsky, the younger son of Countess Vronsky. And so I don't think his brother is Count, but he is some sort of serfs. Everybody is of nobility. There are princesses in this story. I'm sure there are also princes, but princesses are important. And none of these movies explain, and I'm not quite sure because I don't know enough about Russian culture, nor do I particularly want to know about Russian culture. But the fact that somebody is a princess is more of the baroness, earl, countess level compared to other places. So the princess is not the daughter of a king. It's just a title. So, but they're in high society, not high enough that they would actually go to the Tsar or the Tsarina. We never hear about anything like that. And some of the other people in the society is like a landed gentry, but he does have a title, so I'm not sure if that's landed gentry. It's Russia. It doesn't fit to the things that we know. So this country gentleman with a title also can go to whatever high society thing that Anna goes to and Dolly can all go to. Anna is now in Moscow, has seen Alexei Vronsky, and there is a party, a wonderful ball, and she is alone there because her husband doesn't have time to come. He is in St. Petersburg. It appears that in St. Petersburg is the place where all government is happening, because he is, I think it's like a cross between a parliament member in English you'd call him a parliament member, and in the States you would call him a senator. And he's making laws, he's proposing laws, he's talking about laws, so he's high up and he's busy. He cannot go to Moscow on a whim to help Anna out with the brother and the brother's wife. So she's there alone, and she's asked to come to the ball. And she sort of says yes, because there's not much else to do but going to balls. And Vronsky is at the ball, and they dance most prettily, and they look into each other's eyes most prettily, and they fall in love. And pretty soon they're in bed together, because of course they are. And the whole thing devolves from there, because did I say she had a child of 9? I think I did. So she's torn between Vronsky and her home life. She talks to Karenin when he does find out. Of course, he finds out, because he may be oblivious, but he's not stupid, you know. He's such a stuffed shirt, you know. And the first move was for the thing about all of these movies, and I suppose the book, is that we don't really understand what Karenin is wanting and doing. At first he could give her a divorce, but it would be a fault divorce, so she would have to fess up to being adulterous, and Vronsky would have to be fess up for being the other party. So it wouldn't be great, but at least it would be doable and that she'd be free. But he doesn't want to do that. So he emotionally blackmails her with the child. She loves her son. That if she goes off or tries to get a divorce, at first he actually talks about divorce, but then he changes his mind. I think maybe it's something to do with politics. Don't think the book actually explains it. Why? He talks a lot about religion and stuff like that, and it's very... So he says to her he will let her stay if she never sees Vronsky again. And so this very first movie, the 1935 movie, sort of cycles over how she doesn't do that. But what happened in the book is she was pregnant with Vronsky's child. And so not staying away, it's very difficult. She actually has the child in Karenin's house, little baby girl, and then runs off with Vronsky. It's a mess. The entire upshot of the entire story is, and we know this, that Anna Karenina ends with a suicide at a train. And he gives her no choice. You put somebody in a position where you have no choice, they will do one of two things. And since she wasn't the murdering type, she committed suicide. You make it impossible for somebody to live by giving her choices that she cannot adhere to. Never seeing her son again. Why? Not giving her a divorce. Why? So I think the book, quite, I think unintentionally, is actually a story of why divorce, proper divorce that can be started from one person and the other person just has no choice but to adhere to it, is a good thing. Because this way, no. I don't know if Tolstoy meant it to write it that way. What it makes interesting for movies to do the story is the way she slowly falls apart and watching that happen. And so this is also a mental health story. The 1935 version, like I said, skips the baby altogether, but the 1948 version, the baby is born, but it's off stage, and they say it died stillborn. In the 1997 version, baby is born, also the other baby is born, and I will get to the other baby in a second. And it's an absolute bloody mess, and she nearly dies. In the 1935 version, she just becomes ill because the scene of her having the illness, it's there, but you don't understand why. She was having a very bad birth. Baby lives. Not in the 1997 version. Baby, I think it just disappears. I don't think even say that it died. And in the 2012 version, baby lives. So, but it's very clear that Anna doesn't recover mentally from this birth or illness, whichever one you want to see. And she as you get later into the thing, in the 1935 it's not mentioned. In the 1948 it's called laudanum. In the 1997 it's called opiates. And in the 2012 one it's called la morphia. Because they're extra fancy, and I'll get to that. But it's, the 1948 version is right. Laudanum is probably what they would have given her, which is indeed an opiate. They gave that out as almost as cough mixture, but done for emotional things. And everybody was getting it. So Tolstoy would have been aware of this. This was the time for it. And so it put her in a fever dream, and she actually started to think things, and she's put into an impossible situation, and so she suicides. This is a mental health thing. So 1878 he writes a female interest story, mental health. Wow. And I don't think this guy was a feminist, but this is kind of feminist. He's not a feminist, but wow.
I'm wondering, could it have been a postnatal depression?
Yeah, definitely it's not postnatal depression combined with all the other stresses. It's big mess. So the versions. And the 1935 version, Greta Garbo and Frederic Marsh and Basil Rathbone as the husband, Alexei. Unfortunately, both the husband and the lover are both called Alexei as the first name, which is very complicated. But happens a lot because I think Alexei is
just means James.
It's just it doesn't mean James, but it's as normal as James in Russia, I suppose. So Sergei and Alexei and all. Look, all these 4 movies that I'm going to mention are really good movies in their own right. But this book is 800 pages. And this very first movie is only an hour and a half, an hour 35 minutes. They're going to have to skip some stuff. And they already are going to skip some stuff that makes them uncomfortable in 1935. Like that child and the birth of that child and the birth of the other child. I will come to the other child at some point. Actually now, Kitty. Kitty is a Princess Kitty something long because Russian. is, oh God, I actually knew how she fitted in, but now I forgot. Anyway, she's always at the brothers' home, at Stavi and Dolly's home, visiting. And Stavi also knows the country gentleman, the country very well. I suppose he has a lot of land, but he doesn't live quite grandly in any of these versions. He's very much a country bumpkin, but he has got lots of land and lots of money. Levin. Levin is in love with Kitty, but he's a little bit bumbling in how to express it to her, and she's only 18 and she has seen Alexei Vronsky in his beautiful uniform because of course he's a cavalry officer, and she's in love with Vronsky, who not interested in her at all. And so when Levin asks her at the most inopportune moment to marry him, she turns him down. She's 18, come on. And he's very disappointed. And that's the story that's on the side. And it's in the book. It's a pretty important story because Levin is, a lot of the people who are talking about this book say Levin is Tolstoy insert. It's the Gary Stu of this book. And he's very, he does a lot of thinking about religion. And the movies, absolutely none of the movies talk much about any of the religious aspects of Russia. And I think the book is absolutely crammed full of it. And it's all missing from the movies. I don't mind. I really don't mind. This first movie, the 35 movie, it's a Hollywood production, but I think they put out a poster in Hollywood. Anybody who speaks Russian or does anything Russian culture related, come see us. So they have lots of singing, dancing, and then sort of like a local color thing going, which is pretty nice. And they take enough time for that, having to give that up for plot points. And one of the plot points they have to give up for is the story of Karenin himself, so the husband. They have Basil Rathbone play him. Basil Rathbone is wonderful, and he can do stuffed shirt as much as anything else. But he doesn't get any time to do it. The story in this film is just too short. They have to give up too much. But what they do is once Kitty has talked to Vronsky, and Vronsky basically said nah, because he was already looking at Anna, so nah. Kitty, I'm not sure what she has, like a breakdown of sorts. We have a Dutch word for it, verbrulling. She goes absolute bananas on the cries and the and
Hysterics?
Yeah, but cry hysterics more than screaming hysterics. To the point that she actually gets sick enough that they have to call a doctor. And it's another mental health moment for a woman. It's it's the first one in the timeline, but yeah, it's the other mental health moment. And once she gets over that by talking to some of the other ladies in her life and re-meeting Levin, who has been cleaned up a little bit by Stevie and still is interested, they start courting. They date long enough that when he asks her again, she says yes. And then you have a beautiful wedding. Lovely Russian wedding in this movie. They took time to do that. I appreciate that. And she goes with him to the countryside. And in this movie, you don't hear much more about it, which is a shame. This movie ends with Anna's death. There's very poetic foreshadowing of the train. When the train, in the first scene, the train arrives at St. Petersburg with Anna on board. And when everybody got off, the train is ready to depart. And there's like lots of little old men checking the train, well, they're not tires, but wheel things and tracking connections. And so the train starts, and one little man didn't get out in time and gets run over. So it starts with a death under a train. And this haunts Anna for the entire rest of the story. This idea of bad luck arriving in St. Petersburg, and she has nightmares about it. And then when she gets into the drugs, the laudanum, she's starting visions of it. And yeah, so the suicide she commits, of course, is jumping under a moving train. Great. Movie ends there with her on the tracks. Book does not end there. Book actually continues with more of Levin. Levin and Kitty got married, and what happens after marriage is you have baby. That's the other baby. Birth I think in the book, the birth would have been hard. Both births were hard, and to the point that because Levin is at that particular birth, he's shocked on how rough it is on a woman to have a baby. Maybe that they will only have the one, but I don't know. The other baby, Anna's baby, I'm suspecting, like I said, I haven't read the book. I'm suspecting the book doesn't say much about it. We do have a name. It's Anya, which just means Annie. Little Anne, which Anna is, of course, Anne, so little Anne. Anya, little girl. And one of the movies, the last one, has her being reared by the husband. Okay. Hey, 1948. We have Vivian Leigh as Anna, Ralph Richardson as Karenin, Kieran Moore as Vronsky, and I haven't got it on this list, but the little boy who played a couple of the boys in Goodbye Mr. Chips, the real, you know the one. He plays the son. The son is very important there to have in here. This one's on 2 hours and I think 17 minutes. Much better. Yay! Because now we can do the husband story, Karenin's story. And we find out a lot more. His wife just went off with somebody else, got pregnant by somebody else. And I think he is justified in feeling betrayed and upset. He's not justified in letting his son believe that she had died when she hadn't, just to keep her away. And he is not justified in keeping her prisoner by not letting her have a divorce. But he has reason to be upset. I do agree. Ralph Richardson is wonderful, by the way. Basil Rathbone with the same script would also have been wonderful. So I'm annoyed at this first movie. Kieran Moore as Vronsky. Don't think I've seen him in anything else. He's fine. Looking at all the 4 movies, I'm starting to feel that the role of Vronsky is not the greatest role to have, because Frederic Marsh is also great, is a wonderful actor, and this guy, I think he's pretty good as well. Just not shining. So I think this may not be a role where you can shine, in which you can shine. An interesting thing is there is a scene in the middle, just before Karenin finds out that she's sleeping with Vronsky. There's a horse race, because he's a cavalryman, he's a horse cavalryman, and so they have like races, and it's like a steeplechase. And a steeplechase, it's in Dutch it's a hordeloop, and I'll put in it's actually quite dangerous for horses. So in the 1935 version, they're doing a full steeplechase. In the 1948 version, they're fudging it, because they're basically just looking at her, and same like in My Fair Lady, where they do the race. You do get to see some horses, but not as many as you ought to have. In the 1997 version, I think they also fudge it somewhat. There is some racing, but not much. And ditto for 2012. No steeples. In either version, there's no steeples. It's just horses racing very fast, which is much better for horses. And in that race ends with him falling off his horse and his horse almost falling on top of him. There was a moment where Anna thought that he might have been hurt, and this is how Karenin finds out because of her reaction. But the horse, he's fine. Horse is not, so they have to kill the horse on the spot because it has a broken leg, or maybe even 2. And in the 1935 version, a friend of his has to do it. In the 1948 one, he does it himself. And the 1997 one as well. Another one of those manifestos against, incidental manifestos against horse racing. Because effing dangerous. And again, I don't think Tolstoy particularly meant that, or he may have, but it's a little early. So he's just showing what culture is like. And culture kind of sucks. The roles of women in marriage and in religion as well, but like I said, the book goes into that much more than any of these movies do. But just the gender roles and expectations and divorce or lack of it, it's so unfair to everyone, basically. I mean, even if Vronsky gets Anna to get that divorce, he would be a guilty party. He would lose face big time. He is the second son, so may be of less importance. If he was the firstborn, it might have been more of a problem. But the story is not about Vronsky. The story is about Anna. Some of the women, Anna, Karenin, and Levin, is basically what the story is about. It's not about Vronsky. The 1935 version sets the story a little bit in 1878, and there was no bustle. The bustle period had died down at this point, so no bustles. I was looking at it. I had to look it up. Hey, is that correct? It's actually pretty correct. The hair up, but with lots of stuff at the back. So that was pretty correct. Lots of stuff on top. Very weird. Greta Garbo would look great in anything, so it doesn't matter. The 1948 version sets the story in 1875, full bustles, which was fun. The Hollywood version, 1935 version, has more local color and more opulence because more money, and the 1948 version is British made, and so they have some stuff, but they don't have as much opulence and stuff like that. But they have that runtime, oh my god, makes me so happy. They also, and in the 1935 version, when Kitty has her depression, call it that, they go through it pretty quickly, the runtime. In the 1948 version, Kitty has a proper meltdown and a longer enough time. You need a little more. And the Karenin story is all about divorce. The divorce. His first decision to divorce, then his retraction of that, and then it also ends with Anna's death and not anything beyond. Vivian Leigh is wonderful, by the way. Oh, she's so good. Ralph Richardson also absolutely... I think the 2 stars of this show is absolutely Vivian Leigh and Ralph Richardson as the husband and wife. Yay! The 1997 version, I think this is a British-made version, but now they're actually filming in Russia. The other 2 are either Hollywood or English studios, but this one, Russia. They're filming in Russia. They have Russian locations. They have Russian support casts. They do actually do Russian lines in Russian. The actress who plays Anna, I don't think I've seen before. It was Sophie Marceau. I think is actually French speaking. And it is set in 1880. It's kind of interesting. But I think the reason for that is that this girl in her 1880 gown looks very much like this painting. Of a barmaid, and I'm gonna have to, I haven't looked it up. I know the picture, but I haven't looked up the particulars yet, but I'm guessing it's gonna be exactly 1880. And she does look exactly like this girl. No reason other than aesthetics to do that. I don't think she's the strongest player ever. Vronsky is, Sean Bean is Vronsky. And I'm going to say right now, of the 4, and I'm not a big Sean Bean fan. Neither is the Peanut Gallery. I know she's not, but he is absolutely the handsomest of the 4. He is, and he's also the handsomest I've ever seen him in as. So he's charming and handsome and all those things. So you kind of see why she falls in love with this guy. So this one has lots of Russian supporting cast one-liners, and Alfred Molina, who plays Levin, actually has a couple of lines in Russian. So does Sophie, also has a couple of lines. Just they're throwaway lines and they're not subtitled, so they're kind of not very important, like open doors and that sort of stuff. but it's for the local color. It's really good. They have a couple of. I think that this one has a couple of performances on stage. She goes in the story to. Like every version has her go to the operas or whatever local entertainment going on. In the 1935 version, there was a lot of Russian dancers and singers on stage, and 48 not so much. It was just what they would have had on in 1870s Moscow society. It probably would be just an opera and stuff like that. And this one is about, I think it's an hour and 45 minutes. But an hour 45 minutes in 1997, you can do a lot more than an hour and a half in an hour and 45 minutes in 1935. And so they get a lot more done. And this one had the really bad birth. It's a big mess. And much more about Kitty and Levin. And, oh yeah, the music. That was very interesting because this one runs entirely on classical music from Tchaikovsky and Rachmaninoff. And the Tchaikovsky is kind of the right era, but the Rachmaninoff is absolutely not. He was born in 1873, so no. But it's a good choice and it was wonderful. I think this is it a utilitarian version? I think it is actually. It's not a high flyer, I think. Interesting thing is they, when the baby, well, this one it doesn't make clear if the baby is dead, but because of her illness, 'cause she was quite ill, in olden days, which would 1880 would definitely be olden days, when you get really sick for a longer time, they cut your hair short. And so they did that here. And as time goes on, it grows out a little bit, which was an interesting detail. And this one does go on after Anna is dead, with the story of Levin and Kitty. Like the story of Levin and Kitty and what Levin is thinking about is like 200 pages in the book, so they leaving it out sort of feels disingenuous. But what are you going to do with it? And this was okay. The 2012 version, I have it here, a fever dream version by Tom Stoppard. That's absolutely what it is. And I actually remember seeing this. I had a stack of discs I borrowed of somebody, and this was one of them, and I watched all of them. And I was going, what? It's a fever dream. And Tom Stoppard is a really famous English playwright, but he's famous as a playwright, and he did write a couple of movies, some more interesting ones, which I didn't write down. But you're going, oh, did he write that? Yep, he wrote that. But the script is actually surprisingly good and very including of of all elements of the story. But what makes it a fever dream is more of the choices of staging it. As it turns out, I did film some of it in Russia. I don't think it would have mattered very much where you filmed this, because the story takes place on a stage, on an old-fashioned stage, and also in the place where the seats are. Sometimes there are seats, sometimes there's something else. But only when when Levin goes to the countryside, you can actually get countryside. And I think that the distinction I wanted to make is that city life is all in that theater. And the train actually arrives on the stage, a big train. And the glitzy stuff of society is either on the stage or in the audience part or in the fancy seats. But some of the stuff, when they have sometimes they have to travel there, they go behind stage, and you have like police and carpenters walking and people walking all about. They never go to a dressing room, but you get all the behind the stage stuff. So, and that's city life. City life is all that, but country life is real. So I think what they're trying to say with the staging is that city life is abstract and unreal, and country life is concrete and real. There's a lot of Russian in this, or some. There's also Hindi in this. You see, Levin is actually coming to the city a couple of times. So the country gentleman comes to the city a couple of times because his brother is in the city. And his brother is a communist. Yes, it is 1878 and communism is a thing. And he, even though he's pedigree nobility, he's a communist. And he shacked up with a lady from a brothel. And in a bunch of versions she's in there. She's not in the 1935 version. Haha, of course not. Neither is the brother. So, but in this version, she is a obvious person of color. She's Indian. And when he gets sick, because he gets sick and he dies, she sings him a lullaby. No subtitles, no introduction of any kind or mentioned. She sings him a lullaby, and it could be Urdu, but I think it's Hindi. It sounds like Hindi to me. Interesting. Maybe a case of they happen to have a lady available to do that role in that way. I like it. But this thing is such a fever dream that kind of a bunch of things don't matter. This one is the version with the least accurate gowns, the dresses. They're pretty, but they're not accurate. And also, and this is a straight up mistake, and I shouldn't have done that. She wears to that wonderful first ball that she is invited to, and where she dances with Vronsky so beautifully. She's wearing a black gown. Nope. And I think it is to show her oncoming melancholy or something. No. In the 19th century, if you were not actually actively in mourning, you were not wearing black. I can understand some confusion because in the 1935 version and the 48 version, she's wearing a dark gown, which absolutely would have been either burgundy or dark green or navy blue and not black. But on a black and white movie, it looks pretty black to me. So that may have been a misunderstanding of this. And every subsequent version has seen the previous versions, all of them. So they do react a little bit to the earlier versions. I don't know. I think this is one of the better scripts of the three. It's Tom Stoppard, of course it is. But he is skipping a few important things. He's skipping Kitty's depression after Vronsky turns her down and she goes to pieces. They skip that. So there's also no wedding. This is the only one that actually doesn't have the wedding scene of Kitty and Levin, which is a shame because it's a Russian wedding, which is completely different from it's a Greek Orthodox wedding, which is different from any Western weddings. It's kind of good to see that, but no, it's missing. The one thing that is missing, and I don't mind that very much, is that moment where in the 1935 version it's actually Karenin who tells the son that his mother is dead when she's not. But you find out later through the 1948 version and the 1997 version that's not he who said it. It was there was this Countess Lydia played in the 1997 version by Fiona Shaw, who played Petunia in Harry Potter. Kind of the same role. She's poisoning everything around her, but he lets her, so he's also guilty. And she told the boy that because I think he took her in because he needed a female vigor. He's not good with kids or anything. He's not good with anything, basically. So the boy being told that his mother is dead when she's not, that was cruel. And it's missing from this version. And I don't mind that. included in this version and only in this version, and I don't know if this is in the book, but it might be. Why does Anna not have a second child after she had her first? Karenin goes to bed with Anna like clockwork every night for the nookies, and he uses a condom. In 1878, a reusable Yeah, but it's so ick, and I can so understand why Anna is done with it after a while, because that's really ick. I'm sorry. And the Jude Law, who plays Karenin, he plays it beautifully. And I think he's very actively playing it as a functioning autist, a person who doesn't get the cues when they should be getting the cues. Because he does not realize that his wife she needs more than just a used condom, a reusable condom every night at clockwork. She needs more than that, and he doesn't get it. On the upside, at the end, this is the one where he rears Anna's second child, the girl from the affair. He takes her in, and like I said, I don't think that's in the book, and I think that's just Tom Stoppard making the best of it. This is, like I said, the best script, but because of the fever dream, I think the fever dream is they decided on that because it is in 2012. It is over 150 years earlier. It's problems and of people and society of 150 years earlier. But I think they're wrong, because mental health, depression, and postnatal depression are still important, and they still are. So I think this, as pretty as it is, and everybody who is in it is wonderful, I think it was wrong to make it a fever dream. It makes very interesting viewing, by the way. I think this is the prettiest version. In it we have Keira Knightley as Anna. She's beautiful. Aaron Taylor Johnson as Vronsky, but like I said, this is not a great role. The role of Vronsky is not a great role, so I've seen him as something else, and he was better in it. Jude Law as Karenin, and I don't know how to pronounce it, so I'm sorry. Domhnall Gleeson as Levin, and people who know the name. He played Hux in Star Wars, the last 3 movies, and he also played Bill Weasley in the Harry Potter movies. It's a very strange selection of things to put together, but now he plays Levin. He's very good as Levin. I think all the Levins are actually pretty good. He's not the title character, but he's a very important character. I'd like to rate the 4 versions. First I was going to rate the Annas. I think the worst Anna, and like I said, all these movies are actually good, so it's not an issue as such. The worst Anna is Sophie Marceau in the 1997 version. I think she's just not a very strong representation. But she's in good company, because second worst is Greta Garbo. And basically, because the film is so short, she doesn't get enough time to shine. So none of this is actually on the actors. It's just circumstances sometimes. Second best is Vivian Leigh. Also longest version, so she gets lots of time to shine. And that sort of makes the best Keira Knightley. And she is also, I think, the most beautiful of the... The Garbo and Vivian Leigh and also Sophie Morceau are nothing, no slouches. And no uglies or anything like that. But Keira Knightley is, oh my god, and she shines. She shines so much. And the choice of the way they put it together makes her shine. So that in that way it's very helpful. So for versions, the worst version is the 1935 version. Because too short. Straight up. You can be short about that. Next. The third best version is the 1997 version because it's fine. It's utilitarian fine. Nothing wrong with it. So that puts 1948 in second place. Actually, it's a kind of a shared second place and first and second place. I think the 1948 version has some really wonderful things and the 2012 version has some really wonderful things. And they sort of can't really decide between them. So shared first and second place. I still think, and I think I started with that, is this needs a television show of 10 parts or more. There is one from 1977 in BBC, and they did another one in the 2000 and something or others. And there's also a Russian one, which I have no idea where to get that, or translation. But the 1977 one, I believe, is on YouTube. I think it's going to do the story much more in detail. I have no idea if they do some of the religion. The religion in the book is very prevalent, very important. Yeah, like half the story is religious thoughts on faith and doubt, and on happiness and fulfillment, and the fate and free will, but in a religious aspect as well. On the social part, there is a hypocrisy and the gender roles, the hypocrisy of society and the gender roles of that people are forced into, and the general things about love and passion and marriage and what's the meaning of life. You know, it's an 800-page book. There is a room for a lot of thought in it. All these 4 movies are worth seeing. They all have stuff that none of the other movies have, good stuff, and they all are incomplete compared to the book. And that's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it.